Hello everyone, welcome to our tutorial video on implementing the ADDIE model using digital technologies in an online English classroom. My name is Nadia Sarosa.
And my name is Yogi Setiawan.
And today we're going to show you some of the steps that we have taken to integrate technology in language learning. Now, Yogi and I are final year pre-service teachers majoring in English education, and the both of us have been teaching in the same junior high school for 2 semesters now in Jakarta, Indonesia. So we have a pretty good idea of what our students are like, what the school's visions and missions are, their curriculum, and so forth. Because we are pre-service teachers or teachers in training, this video is also mainly directed towards pre-service teachers. We want to share with you some of the things that we have learned from our 8 semesters of pre-service teaching. Surely, all classrooms are different and each individual student in class is unique. Hence, what we will be sharing with you today are the things that have worked for us and our students in our current situation amidst the COVID pandemic. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, let's talk about our framework. We refer to the ADDIE model for our main instructional framework, which comprises of 5 different steps. Step 1 is to analyze. In this step, we retrieve information from our subjects, in this case, our students, by conducting a needs analysis. Obtaining this data may be in the form of an observation, interview, or any other means of collecting data. Step 2 is design. This is the stage in which all planning for the lessons happen, from learning objectives, what materials will be used, and so forth. In step 3, we begin to develop the content and integrate instructions and learning materials together. Step 4 is when we finally implement the lesson and learning materials within the classroom. And lastly, in step 5, that is when we make an evaluation of the students' understanding, progress, and performance. This can be done by receiving feedback from student assessments, including direct responses, discussions, individual or group work, and projects. Once we have retrieved the data for our needs analysis, we can begin putting together our lesson plan. Firstly, based on the students' characteristics and their level of English proficiency, it is safe to say that this type of ESOL is identified as ESL+. Aside from that, we also have integrated various learning approaches, including topic-based learning, where the lesson is focused on a specific topic, and task or project-based learning, where learners are given various types of assessment from individual to group work. Starting off with the first stage of the ADDIE model is analyze. It is important to note that before selecting any learning activities and digital tools, we must conduct a needs analysis. Yogi and I have had plenty of time to make observations of all junior high school classrooms for 2 semesters. We mainly focused on how teachers deliver the materials, what digital tools they use to integrate within their lessons, how they engage with students in activities, the students' response, attitude, and overall behavior towards the lessons, as well as the classroom environment. In this particular classroom, there are about 160 students in a Zoom session. Because there are so many students, the way this works is that there are several teachers in the room who are assigned different tasks during the session. One teacher is assigned to admit the students into the classroom, take attendance, monitor the participation in class, and one main teacher to facilitate the lesson. All students and teachers are required to activate their cameras during class sessions. This semester, the school used a topic-based teaching approach revolving around the Universal Apostolic Preference, or UAP. This theme is broken down into 4 focuses. The first focus is showing the way to God. The second is walking with the excluded. The third is journeying with the youth. And last but not least, the fourth is caring for our common home, or environmental sustainability. From the 4 topics, we have chosen walking with the excluded and caring for our common home, as shown in red at the bottom of the slide. However, in this video, we will only be talking about the 4th focus. Next is the analysis of the appropriateness of digital tools. The digital tools which teachers have used or are currently using in this class is crucial to pay attention to and should not be underestimated. Although we may want to bring new digital technologies to the table, it is important to note that adaptation to a new mode of learning takes time for both teachers and learners. Jumping in too quickly may not be effective in certain classrooms, as students may have to learn and navigate certain platforms first before it can be functional for them. The teachers use Google Classroom and LCMS as the main learning management systems. These two platforms are used to make announcements, distribute learning materials, divide and organize groups, take attendance, compile grades, and receive student submissions. Other digital tools and materials that teachers use to deliver the lessons include Google Slides for the main presentation, StreamYard for a live streaming class, YouTube for audiovisual aid, and online articles. Classroom environment is one of the most important factors affecting students' learning. With a large number of students in class, they were given the opportunity to build their confidence and capacity to speak up, address issues, and also make decisions during the session. Through these themes, the teachers stressed that it is essential to develop lessons that are meaningful to learners so they can become emotionally invested within learning itself. As for how learners responded to the learning materials provided by their teachers, we found that learners were more interactive when presented with controversial and debatable topics. Based on our observations, learners mostly respond through the chat feature on Zoom or when called upon randomly by their teachers to unmute their microphones. Learners also express their interest for teachers to bring more opportunities for debates and arguments into the lesson. So as you can see, it is crucial to observe learners before deciding what teaching method, approach, topic, and materials are most suitable for that particular class that you are going to teach. The purpose of conducting a needs analysis is to better understand our learners so we can further enhance their learning in the future. Once we have obtained this data, we can then move on to designing learning instructions.
In the design part, there will be lesson plan, learning materials, and also integration of digital technology. The theme of the video was about the technology for environmental sustainability and logical fallacy as the language focus. This lesson plan is designed for grade 8, in which English is the medium instruction. We use the 3-piece concept as our general lesson structure, which are presentation, practice, and also production. And then as referring to the result of the need analysis, we come up with the learning objective. The first one, by the end of the lesson, students are able to independently read an article and identify common fallacy within argument regarding various current environmental problems. And the second one, partake in critical conversation while providing and receiving constructive input among peers using target language. For each of the activity of our lesson plan, we refer to the Bloom taxonomy as the classification of the different objectives and skills that we set for different students, which is the learning objective. And then some of the digital technology we have integrated in our learning activities included the first one, Zoom meeting, and then also Google Slide. We also use Peer Deck, Google Classroom, LMS, YouTube, Canva, and Google for search, article, advertisement, image, and others. Later in the video, we will show you how we have used these tools to adapt from the teaching and learning in face-to-face mode to asynchronous and asynchronous mode. And then, moving to the lesson structures, for the pre-activity stage, we begin the class with the mixing and match dictionary activity. This activity aims to get students' attention by introducing them to the technology for environmental sustainability through a picture. For the digital technology, we use Zoom to facilitate synchronous learning in conference session. Then there is video after that. This video is for the bridging and introducing the language focus, which is about logical fallacy. In this video, this is from Press A, which is talk about man versus earth. So this is considered as a policy. In this case, YouTube is used to show the video. From these two pre-activities, we use understanding level of Bloom taxonomy, which is about understanding and making sense out of information. This can be in a form interpretation, summarization, explanation, and also discussion. And then from the presentation, we have independent reading, which is to introduce to the technology for environmental sustainability to the students. We ask them to read an article by themselves with the title Creating an AI Can Be 5 times Worse Than Planet and a Car. So this article introduced about the common logical policy that is related to the environmental sustainability problem. In this stage, QuickDeck and Google Slides are used to present the picture as well as the tool to ask the students respond by using QuickDeck. And then they will ask also to give direct opinion, argument, and also response to give by the given topic. By using this activity, we in this presentation we use understanding and analyzing level of Bloom taxonomy, which we ask the students to explain the idea or concept of the article, and then also they will be able to draw conclusion among the ideas. And then for the presentation stage, we also get the students' opinion by the introducing common logical policy. Moving for the practice stage, we present the students about the common types of logical fallacy along with the example. This gets students to practice identify the fallacies. And then it continue with asking them to complete the example made by their own in feedback. So we ask them directly using feedback to give their own example by having explanation by the teacher in the previously. And then in this stage, we believe that the understanding and applying level of Bloom taxonomy is used to ask the students to grasp the meaning of instructional materials and also use information in a new or but similar situation in a form. And then for the production, we ask them to work independently, which is search for environmental campaign. It can be video, article, podcast, or advertisement. In this case, students will search for environmental campaign related to their interests, and then also it should be related to the technology for environmental sustainability. In this case, they must identify the logical policy found in the advertisement or campaign, and then explain why this is considered as a policy. And then for this production activity, we use higher order thinking skills of Bloom taxonomy, which is about evaluating and creating stage. This allows students to critically examine information and make judgment and use to create something new in a form or something new.
Moving on to the development stage, there are several things to consider when creating the lesson and/or learning materials. Firstly, since the context of our lesson is online, it would be wise to take in consideration all the platforms which learners are familiar with and have already gotten used to. For instance, based on the needs analysis of our class, we found that learners have already been familiarized with Google Classroom as their main learning management system. So instead of switching to another learning management system like Moodle, Canvas, or Edmodo, why not save time to stick to what has already been used? Of course, this was after deciding that Google Classroom provides all the essential features to manage a classroom, including student submission, file sharing, quick and easy access to Google Drive, Google Docs, Jamboard, Google Form, and many more. Now, the steps in which you choose to develop your lessons and materials is entirely up to you. The reason we have chosen to first decide on an LMS was so we could work around it more easily. As stated previously, if not all, most of the digital tools we used for our assessments are on Google. Next up is how we came to develop assessment materials for both individual and group work. Referring back to the Universal Apostolic Preference theme, One of the themes we have chosen to integrate with our lesson is technology for environmental sustainability, or caring for our common home. This lesson is considered to have a topic-based approach with the theme revolving around technology for environmental sustainability. However, because this is still an English class, we have integrated the fundamental concepts of using fallacious reasoning in arguments as the target language. As some of you may already know, learning about fallacies is not necessarily the easiest thing to do. Fallacies, as defined by various sources, is a type of argument or reasoning that is misleading. It can be used in different settings such as debates, articles, social media platforms, business meetings, as well as everyday conversations. Its purpose is to persuade and convince others, and it is used more often than we think. Having said that, this concept of fallacies and technology for environmental sustainability does require a lot of critical thinking. Because our observations of learners have shown that they are capable of this level of critical thinking, and also because they have just learned about argumentative text, we decided to go further in depth. Alright, the tasks we have developed for learners to do are intended to scaffold their learning process. The first task requires classroom participation through responding to certain questions. In this instance, learners are given the definition of a fallacy, an example of a fallacy, strategies to avoid it, and the reconstruction of the sentence. They are then asked to reconstruct another example and put their answers in the text response on Pear Deck. The next task is individual work, where they are required to make an analysis of an advertisement related to environmental sustainability. Using this Freyer diagram template, learners had to identify the types of fallacies found within the advertisement, the characteristics of the fallacy, the reason why they think it is a fallacy, and attempt to reconstruct the slogan or phrase which contains fallacious reasoning. In this step, we have assigned each learner a slide to work on. Since learners have already learned how to identify fallacies, the third assessment is the group project, where they were asked to create their own advertisement. The first advertisement includes fallacious reasoning, and the second is without. They are required to use a rubric as an instruction guideline. We have assigned 4 to 5 people to work in one group. Like the previous task, they must submit a portion of their work on Google Slides. Their brainstorming or notes will be put on Google Slides, and the results of their final work can be inserted in the form of a link. They are then free to create their projects with any platform, including Canva, Wix, PowerPoint presentation, and many more.
For each session, there will be 70 minutes for time allocation. In this case, we already set the time for each of the activity so that the teacher can estimate it effectively. The session starts by presenting the slide and asking the students to go to the joinpd.com. So before entering to the pre-activity, we ask them to go to the joinpd.com, and they should enter the code given by the teacher for the classroom activity in Pear. It is important to start the class with highly motivating activity. By getting students' attention to mix and match dictionary games, it can be a way for them to be more excited to start the class, and also can be transition or bridging in the beginning of the class. Then, the teacher starts the class by using the lesson plan as the guideline of the teaching. For each of the activity, we use Pear, which allows students and teachers to have directly interaction in teaching process. In case, if there is no students who want to answer the response directly, the teacher can randomly pick their name and ask them to give response. This way can be used to anticipate the students' passiveness in the classroom. Finally, we have made into the evaluation stage. In this stage, we will show you more and less what grading process actually looks like. And surely, after providing an assignment, they must be given feedback in form of comments or grades. In this evaluation stage, there are three things. The first one, manual versus automated grading. Second one is time efficiency. And the third one, students' feedback and course of reflection. For the manual grading versus automated grading, when deciding whether to grade the tasks automatically or manually, it comes down to activity itself. Due to the nature of assignments we have given, the feedback or grading cannot be automatically and therefore must be done manually using a rubric. This can be tedious work as there are hundreds of assignments to grade it in our case. Another thing you need to keep in mind that whether or not you as a pre-service teacher have time to grade the assignments that you yourself assigned. Aside from your teaching, it is likely that you also have another assignments that must be done from your university. And then this is the example of our grading process, which is manually. And then for the time efficiency, of course, to be more student-centered, we want to make sure that students' assignment and materials are useful and meaningful for them. But honestly, let's not forget, we teachers are human too. We need to sleep also as a pre-service teacher. It is likely that we would have a juggle time with other tasks from university. As exciting as our project it is, maybe it's not always be an effective way to access our learners, especially in large class. To be realistic, you may want to give a couple projects here and there, but there will also be a combination of other assignments such as quizzes, reading assignment, and many more. Again, this is depend on your factors such as classroom size and also your proficiency of the students. On top of that, you can also ask your learners to give a feedback and course reflection. You can create a Google form from your learners to fill out the end of each quarter and ask questions using KWLHA chart. In this case, we already asked the students to fill out the Google form and then they give feedback, and here is the result. And then this type of reflection can be done through the session after the end of the session. Here, asking reflective or concept check question on what learners already know, and then also what they want to know and how they will find and what they want to know. And the last one is how they can be discussed at the beginning of the session. What they have learned can be asked in the middle of the session. And lastly is that reflection on what action they might be taken from the lesson. This reflection can easily be done using the text response feature on a Peer Deck, Zoom chat, Google Form, or any other types survey platform that can be used for students' feedback and course reflection. Okay, so now we have finally come to the end of the video. Together we have discussed how we implement the ADDIE model using digital technologies in an online English classroom. This model can be implemented to teach other subjects as well besides language. So you can use it to your teaching needs and your learners' needs. Since all the classroom and learners are different, your method and approach will likely be different than ours.
We would love to hear how you would implement this in your own classroom, so please leave us a comment down below and let us know what materials you might come up with for your own class. Also, we would greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a like on this video. Any feedback, comments, or questions are very welcome as we are constantly trying to find ways to improve ourselves as lifelong learners. Thank you so very much for watching this video. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye and stay safe, everyone.